Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. So I am taping this. It is, I think, January 6th or 7th. Laura, what is it? Is it the 6th or 7th?
You know, you're asking the wrong person. I'm going to go with 6.
Okay.
I think it's the 6th.
And I will tell you that, well, see, before we even get to our topic, Laura Bird is my guest today. She is a witch, a spellcrafter, a artist, all kinds of stuff to talk about. But since we are here, Laura, I'm just going to jump in about 2022 has not disappointed as for being insane, not as insane as I thought. I thought a lot more was going to go down. But how has 2022 been for you?
I mean, okay. So right now everything seems to be okay. But the end of 2021 for me was insane and crazy energy. And going into 2022, I actually felt like I shed a huge layer. I actually had the flu over Christmas, which so energetically and physically, I just felt like I just purged the entire 2021 and kind of shook it off, you know, like a bird shaking water off its back. I was like, okay, we're done with that year. And now I do actually feel a little bit lighter. But I think it's going to be a really interesting year for everyone, to be honest with you. Looking at like my clients so far and channeling their years and looking what everyone's going to be experiencing, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be good. Really feel like it's going to be good.
You can keep telling me it's good because it is interesting, and I hope this is okay to jump right into this topic because two things, the flu, you're talking about a purge, and right now, I mean, so everybody on my podcast knows that I'm trying to move to Nashville, but it looks like I'm going to have to go to New York and take care of my parents for a little bit, which is really disappointing, but that has to mean something, or there has to be something there. Now, it's interesting with you and the flu because everyone, or I know quite a few people that have gotten COVID very badly, and the minute it broke and it seemed to break and go away, a couple of them saw dark entities leave them or something dark go. So it's amazing that you're using the word purge because I do feel like everyone is going to get sick. Okay, I think this is going to come out in February or March, but it's January. But I don't know if we can escape, number one, getting sick or purging something. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I'm always a really big fan of getting a little bit sick. Like I was never worried about getting a cold, getting the flu, or even getting COVID because I believe that it's a huge energetic cleanse. And COVID itself, I mean, COVID has some very specific energetic coding. So if you get COVID, you're going to get the energetic coding for the new earth, which we all need. We all need the energetic coding. So we actually don't want to avoid getting it in a way, which probably is people are so used to avoiding it and running away from it. It's probably a very new concept for someone to say, welcome it into your body, because actually it's going to upgrade you. And how I see it, the world itself is going to go through a purge. Like if you think about everything that the world and the people of it have experienced and gone through, the world, the earth, she's purging and she's cleansing. And so the people on it will also be going through the same thing. And I have loads of people around me right now. Suddenly everyone's got COVID. Everyone.
Yes,
and you know, everyone was fine. Suddenly it's like, sorry, my client's cancelled. She's got COVID. This client's got COVID. My client yesterday had COVID. Everyone seems to have it. I don't think we can avoid it, and I don't think we need to be scared of it. It's actually, from my perspective, it's a real blessing, and it pulls out fear. So it attracts to fear and it pulls out fear. So people that are getting it are people that tend to have that underlying fear, and it's sort of a buried energetic coding in the system, like in their body system. And that's kind of what COVID attaches itself to. And so when COVID leaves, it pulls the fear out of the body because you can't shift to the new earth if you have a lot of fear. That's how I see it.
I love this right off the bat. I'm glad we didn't go right to topic because this is really a new perspective, but it does resonate with me. And I'll tell you, it's very interesting. First off, I have been doing angel meditations, like trying to connect and talk to archangels, digital, kind of the form that they're in. And they told me that I had to clean up my vessel or body now. They were like, you need to clean it up now because there's a very high frequency coming in. And if you don't clean it out, you're going to get ill. Not like kind of like ill, like COVID ill and better. Not like you're going to be sick forever. But they were like, and I started eating great and getting the metals out of my system, which I think was a big, big thing. Because already I'm thinking clearer. I don't think I realized. I think I'm in an apartment with lead pipes, which I'm getting out of. But I almost immediately, when I started this metal cleanse, thinking clearer right away. Number one. But it is interesting that I wondered, because everyone is getting COVID now, whether it's a cold or they're getting it very deeply. And that's fascinating that it is sort of going through. You know what? My clients, a phrase I'm ending up using a lot about this year is identity crisis, and not the way that we're thinking. Identity crisis in like, a good example is, I kept running into these ladies that were very bossy, and they were telling me what to do, and they had all the answers. And then I had to go, Karen, that's you. You do that. You know what I mean? So I had to go, all right, you got to adjust that. Who are you? Well, Karen, you're a bossy lady that gives advice sometimes when people don't want it. Sometimes they do. That's why they call me. But this fear of the shadow side is now we have to face it, and we have to be okay with it. This holding up this image of perfection, or I'll do it myself, all of those are making people sick now, I think.
Yeah, the shadow it really came up towards that. I noticed November and December, people's shadows really coming up, because I'm usually very blessed in the sense that I have the really amazing clients that are always very, very kind and grateful for me. But at the end of the year, I started noticing I was getting DMs on Instagram and things of people just being a little bit sharp. And I thought, that's really odd. I don't normally have this issue. This isn't really a problem. But it's kind of like people's shadow selves are really coming up and out for the end of the year. I always do a spell at the end of the year. Everyone else is partying through New Year's Eve, and I'm there with my candles and doing my spells, because it's like the end of an entire year and you're welcoming in a new year. And so anything that I can release and be aware of, I want to get that gone. I don't want to bring that into 2022. And so that's probably on the same lines of what you're talking about. It's like the shadow coming up. Your shadow sounds similar to my shadow. I do this work like you, so I'm offering advice all the time, but I definitely offer it when no one's asking for my opinion. And I definitely push people when they're not asking to be pushed. And I take it on as my story, and I get very invested in people and very frustrated when I see someone needs to go somewhere or do something and they're just not doing it. So that was my shadow that also came out.
I love
like
you.
2000, like yeah, exactly. I'm like, you're saying it. I'm like, oh, it sounds like I'm talking to myself, because that's literally me. And that shadow came out December, and I did a spell to release it 2 days before I got sick, and I got really sick. And so it pulled that out, because it gets in the way of my relationships, that sort of shadow side. And I'm sure you probably feel the same, maybe.
I do.
With that piece.
100%. And also I feel like I'm like, you just have to listen and let them do their thing. And that's so interesting about your clients, because I'm with you. The reason I'm trying not to raise my prices is because I like who comes to me. Like, somebody was like, why don't you double your prices? And I was like, I like who comes to me. That works for me, you know? And so I want to just keep them. I may have to, the way things are going, or if I have to move home. But I did have the end of the year, I was like, my clients were very different. There were some sprinkled in that I was like, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong business. But you know, I did 108 sun salutations. The first day there was a yoga class. The lady said, we do 108 sun salutations, which is 107 too many. And
wow, I was going to say that's a lot.
It was. And I am in shape. This busted me. I almost didn't think I was going to make it. But while I was doing it, I had to close my eyes and I kept seeing these black snakes coming off me. And I think it was Amy Spicer said those are old and broken timelines that are coming off you. So that's interesting. The beginning of the year with that. Yeah, it's just, and the other thing, I feel like, it was so interesting when I was booking this with you. We did it through my tarot calendar. And then when the day came, I looked at it and I said, oh, that's not an appointment. We're taping the podcast. And you're Laura Bird. And I had a client that had a name spelled Birdie. And so I contacted her and I was like, hey, so we're doing the podcast tomorrow. And she's like, no idea what you're talking about. So then I canceled you without telling you. And then it took me like 2 weeks to look at my WhatsApp because that's not dinging. My whole phone is not sending messages and my whole tarot calendar got screwed up all at once, all in the first week. And you were like, hey, you canceled the appointment. And I was like, oh my God. So we made it here. That is fantastic. But fascinating views on what's going on. So tell me before we even get started, do you have a specific thing you feel optimistic about 2022? Because I don't.
So that's okay. Well, for me, I mean, this is just how I've channeled it. To me, it feels like it's the year of the divine masculine, which I've never experienced before in all of the years I've done this work. It's always been very much about the awakening of the woman, the feminine and the divine feminine. And it's always been about her unfolding and developing. But 2022 for me, it feels like it's going to be the year of the divine masculine, which means that because the women of the world have done so much sacred work on themselves, the men are now shifting to new territory. Oh. So it's going to be a very grounded year, which is really positive because, I mean, I notice in the field that I work, I do get some people that are very ungrounded. They're very fluffy and they're, they live in their imagination and their fantasy and they don't live in the real world. And sometimes they'll come to me for readings and ask me questions about someone that they like. And yet the cards are showing absolutely no indication of a relationship. And yet they're sort of in love with this idea of this person, this man. And it's because they're living in their heads and they're living in hope. And it's caused so much suffering in women. You might have had readings similar, but
I think you're talking to me. I think you're talking. I'm like, I need to get a reading with Laura. Laura needs to pull me to the earth.
Yeah, right. Because it's so interesting because the women that come to me that aren't grounded, they're really unhappy. And it's because they're not in their body and they're not being present. They're not in the real world. They're in their head. And it's like, I mean, if you've experienced it, you'll know it causes so much suffering because every time they see reality, they get so disappointed and they get so hurt every time because it's like, well, I'm sorry, but that person's been doing that for a long time, but you've only just paid attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the only piece that isn't me just because I'm pretty happy, but I have a really great career. Yeah. So that might be the other piece. But I know exactly what you're saying. It is easier to live in that imagination than to live in reality.
Totally. And I get it because I think I teach that a lot because I've done it. So I'm kind of like, I have so much empathy for anyone, men and women that are in that situation. But this year just feels like people are going to be, especially women as well, because the energy feels so solid that a lot's going to shift. Because the way I see it is that, when your body goes through something traumatic, even like physically, like when you give birth, for example, you kind of leave your body a bit because the body's suffering, it's in pain, and you kind of lift out of your body when you're in pain. And to me, it feels like the earth did that. So it felt like the earth to me was in pain. And through COVID, she cleansed herself, and all the people of the earth kind of left their body a little bit because everyone was scared and no one knew what was happening. And it triggered people's childhood wounds. COVID is a huge childhood wound sort of activator. And so now that it's settling down, people are coming back down to the earth, and the earth's different. And what you were getting is probably similar because you can't come back down if your body is sick or if it needs cleansing or if it needs cleaning. So that might have been the guidance that you got to clean the body to come back down to earth, and it's going to feel different.
And it
That's what I'm
feels,
getting.
oh, that's excellent, Laura. And it feels really good. It feels, it is, here is the one part that I think everybody can relate to. I do have to get a reading from you. I feel like everyone, there's a nonstop. Even the moment, like another thing I did is at 6:00, everything goes off. You just sit and draw or knit or just do something that's not work, because I'll work till 10:00 and then go, what did I do today? I just worked. But it's like a train of events that just are nonstop. If it's not a phone call for this, it's yesterday I had a nice easy day. I was so ready. And then my Acuity double booked all appointments, and it went into this, oh my God, now I have 6 appointments instead of 3 and da, 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 da. And I feel like, and I don't, that's the part I don't know if the message is, it's all going to be okay. So don't freak out and fix it. Or if it's just like everything is being thrown at you, like this is the world I created or something. But do you feel like that? Like it's just one thing after another?
It has definitely felt like that. And I've had to make a lot of changes similar to you, because what we did in 2021, there's no room for it in 2022. Like you're the same as me. I would get up. I mean, I started my business by waking up at 5 a.m. and doing work until 10 p.m. And I did that for years. But now I don't do that so much, because it was starting to make me like I had no life outside of my work. And because I love my work, it's very easy for me to get lost in it, because to me it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. But the balance definitely got lost. And so I've been doing the same as you. So I wake up at 6:00 and I do some stretches and I light a candle and I do some meditation. And then I start my day, and I'm in my room by sort of 7 or 8 to do stretches, wind down, phone off, meditation, yoga, go to bed, and having that structure. But that's that masculine structure that I'm talking about for 22. It's like the female energy, she needs a container to be able to feel like she can create more. Because a lot of women in 2021, it's like that female energy is sort of flying around everywhere and creating from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and there's no structure. And the masculine container of 22 is pulling you in and saying, okay, we need structure now. And you'll notice that with that container, you'll be able to actually create more in the time that you allow yourself to sort of do that, rather than just keep going until it's time to fall asleep.
Interesting. Okay, hold on one second. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come right back and hang on, folks. Hey, everybody, just want to let you know my tarot class is on sale this weekend only until the 23rd, or the 23rd. I believe it runs out at midnight. So that'll be 2 days. You can get half off when you go to karenrontowski.com and click on tarot, and then you're going to use the coupon code October, all capital letters October. Also, November 1st, I finally have a Patreon. I know I'm so far behind everyone else. It is a tarot and psychic development. So it's going to be some paranormal, but mostly tarot and psychic development. I'm going to be putting up classes myself that are tarot classes, and we're going to be doing meditations and psychic exercises, and there's going to be homework and all kinds of fun stuff. I'm also going to have guests come on and tell us about their process, how they do their thing. So November 1st, the first class will be out. November 4th, patreon.com/Rontowski. Okay, so I want to see if I have any questions or jump on that, because exactly what you're talking about is what I need. And it's almost like, and I'm not even sure right now. Today it looks like I have to go to Utica before I go to Nashville, which could be 6 months or whatever. But it's like, okay, this is what you have to put your attention on now. You have to stay focused that there's something outside of it, or make the best of Utica when you're there, or whatever's happening here. It's kind of like it is being grounded, and you have to handle this first. Is that what 2022 is going to be about? You have to handle this first.
Yeah. And with the COVID thing, that was, like I said about the childhood thing, it's a really big, shift in releasing childhood wounds. And I would imagine if you have to go back to, be around near your family and your parents, there's probably some childhood wounding that you've got to deal with before you move forward. Because a lot of the time, because that female energy that you're talking about, where it's like you work until 10 in the evening, there's no container. And that's sort of like when we're addicted to chaos, or we're addicted to that female freedom, but we have to rebuild the masculine structure. A lot of women, when they have their spiritual awakening, they sort of go, oh, I don't want to work 9 to 5. I want to be free. I don't want to have to go and do this and go there. I want to just be free, and I want to fly, and I want to float. And so they break away from such a distorted masculine structure, but they forget to rebuild a healthy one. And so they're just off floating around, and they don't know where they're going or what they're doing. So in order to recreate the male structure, you kind of need to go back to the beginning where it was distorted or broken and rewrite it.
I love
being, so being around your family and your parents, all those things will probably give you some insights. And I'd imagine you got to get that straight in your mind before you move to the next piece.
Yes. You know what else? What you were saying there, I'm going to give like a semi-example for the listeners, which probably a lot of them are nodding already. And it's the one I love, which is therapists moving into intuitive counseling. And sometimes they want to just quit the therapy and move into that. And then I get a call and it's like, nobody's booking readings. And it's like the mid ground there is what you're doing as a therapist is 100% important still. You're transitioning into intuitive, but sometimes people think they're wasting their times, or if they're at a company where they're like, this isn't a good company and they're bad people. And it's like, well, you might be holding the energy right there, the good energy that is needed until you move on to your next thing. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because people will tend to break through. I mean, I do this. I do this too. Like, you let go of something completely and then you try and do something else. But actually, we have to remember that what we're doing now, like say, for example, a therapist, there's going to be, that's very masculine, and intuitive is very feminine. You want to combine the two, because it's like, okay, but you might, it's actually a good example, because I had a friend who was a psychologist, and she couldn't stand the parameters. She was like, I just want to give them so much more information, but I'm not allowed to actually step out of the guidelines that I've been given. So she broke out and did intuitive stuff, and she's trying to pick it up, but it's not actually manifesting. But it's like, we've got to take the old, break that structure. Okay, that doesn't work. Put in the intuitive stuff and now create a new structure. So that's a lot of what people are experiencing right now. It's like, break out of the old, create a new, but you've got to create the new parameters around it. That male structure's got to be around it. Otherwise, it doesn't develop.
Right. So don't knock down your house and not have another one built. Transition the two. Correct. Save what.
Yeah. Blend. Yeah. Blend them. Create. Because people tend to break down the old structure and then try and build a new one. It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with the old structure. You just got to change it around and play with it a little bit.
Awesome. Okay. So this sort of segues into something that one of the topics when I met you that I wanted to talk about, which is interesting. And I'm going to go back to, because it was about 2 weeks ago. I was always one of these people that was like, when people said they talk to angels, I was like, wow, they're talking to angels. And then if it happened to me, I was like, yeah, that's not an angel. You're kidding yourself. And so I kind of just leaned into it. And then once I leaned into it, the messages became very, very clear. And one of them, this is a weird one. I'm not really an artist, or I should say not yet, or I don't create drawings or paintings. And they kept saying, draw us, because everybody knows I'm obsessed with what they really look like, which is geometric figures more so than people or the seraphim are different. So I found this beautiful online drawing class for a program, and they keep saying, when you're drawing us, you're connecting with us. And I didn't know if that meant that strengthens the connection, or it puts your attention on us, but it is really this interesting, maybe it brings it into the 3D, but it is this connection that I'm always fascinated with, which is art, feminine side, psychic energy, all that connected. Do you have an opinion on my little story there?
Well, do you know what the first thing that comes to mind, which is probably more for your benefit than the angel's benefit, is that when you're drawing them, you're acknowledging that they're there. So before, where you're like, that's everyone else can do it, but no, not me. I can't hear. But when you're actually drawing them, you're saying, I'm accepting my gift, and I'm accepting that I hear you and I see you. But it definitely brings it into the physical as well. And you're pulling energy out and you're making it physical. So when you make it physical, every time you look at those drawings or those paintings, you're going to be reminded, you're going to get a feeling or a vibration. And I always believe that the energy of paintings kind of go into the room or go into the house where you have it. So you're kind of, you're taking the energy of it and you're making it something real. So not only for yourself to acknowledge that you're doing this, but also in a way, I always believe the more you acknowledge it, the bigger it gets. That's how I learned to connect to my own, guide. Just kept believing that I was doing it. And there were definitely times that I can tell you I probably wasn't when I first learned, but you gotta kind of know when you're not connecting so that you know when you are connecting. It's like, okay, that's my head. That's not my guides. That's my head, or that's me wishful thinking. But the more you draw, I wonder it will probably adapt and it will grow and it will become something, because you're sort of taking their energy and people can look at it as well and they can feel the same energy. So you're sharing that as well with the people that get to look at it.
Well, that's so on because also this, for some reason, this couple of days, which has been quite frantic, I felt like I haven't connected, but I haven't worried. I felt like I got the messages I needed to last couple of weeks. And so now is okay. Now is good. But it's so amazing that you say that, because I live in a very haunted building and have finally calmed everything down, maybe 6 months or a year ago, with literally stickers I have stickers of the Eye of Horus over every door. I have an Om sticker on my wall, and I think you're right. This physical, bringing those visuals into my home, calmed it down.
Yeah, because it's a lighter vibration, right? Anything angelic is of the light. So when you bring in light where there's dark, it kind of counteracts it.
Wow. Okay. So, and I'm going to talk, this is a very interesting side note, but they have these services now and they're paint by numbers, but you send them a picture and they send you the paint by numbers and the paints. And I ordered a very small one, but I thought, if these actually look okay, I should pay for a big one and start doing take a picture of like a tree I love, or a picture of me and a friend I love, and fill my house with those.
Yes, I'm a huge believer in that. Like, painting and artwork is so, like, what you're putting on the wall is going to vibrate into your life. I'm a huge believer of that. So if you have a picture of a place that you love, that whenever you see it, you feel amazing, or friends that you love, if you paint that and put all your energy and love and effort into that painting, that would feel amazing. Like, that would literally feel amazing in your house. You should totally do that. That sounds fun too.
It does, for somebody that's not that doesn't know how to start. It looks like a great way to start. That is wonderful. I'm so glad. We even had the wrong. I booked you East Coast time, so we're 3 hours earlier taping. But this is all working out really perfect. And I feel like I started this podcast backwards by just like not even introducing you, but people know I'm like that. Tell me, because I was brought up in a family where it's like, no, you don't spend money on art. Art is not if you're rich, you can have art. You get stickers because you're poor. You get stickers. So that actually is such a wonderful interpretation of bringing that energy in, which also weirdly, I saw this on I think it was on a TikTok. Your phone backdrop, your phone wallpaper is what you're looking at every day. And somebody said, you know how on iPhone you can make folders and they say like business, or I have one that's like all photo apps. Somebody was saying, name these folders differently, like I'm rich, I'm in love. And I thought, what a great thing to look at every day.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I love that.
Yes. So start even before. We need to start with art and witch, and then we're going to get to paintings. So which one came first, your art or sort of this witchcraft? Is that a great way to say it? Witch, pagan, what do you prefer?
Yeah, witchcraft is fine. Witch is fine. what came first? Witchcraft came, I probably found witchcraft when I was quite young, and then I shut it down. And then I picked it up again recently. So I would say, in a way, the art came first. Because it sort of flowed in a way. It was sort of, blogging, then tarot reading, then intuitive healing, regression work, and then sort of painting. It's sort of been this long journey. But painting came first, and I've been painting for a while now. And it's funny because I've heard the same thing. Like, I've heard people say that there's this concept, isn't there, of like, well, you can't make money painting. Mm-hmm. You can't. People don't buy paintings. And I think, I'm sorry, but I've never had an issue selling a painting. I've never had a problem. Everyone's always bought my paintings. But then I didn't think that was an issue. And I think that's why it's like I do things and people go, oh, wow, you did that. And I think, well, I didn't know I couldn't. So
I love that.
It didn't matter. You know what I mean? So it's like, so obviously, like I paint vaginas. That's what I do. And people go, oh, okay. And they sell. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think they wouldn't sell. It didn't even cross my mind, because when I look at them, I step back and I go, wow, that's amazing. Because I don't really look at my art and say, I did that. I kind of look at it and go, I channeled that. Like, my guides painted that through me,
Not only that, so your art is gorgeous. And I was seeing it online when I was looking at it, and almost all your paintings are sold out.
Yeah, I sold over 200 pieces, and I'm posting pictures every week of new ones. There's some on my website now that are still available because I just painted them 3 days ago. But everything else is sold. I tend to like paint a bulk, and then I sell them all and then paint the next bulk. So I've never had an issue selling them. People love them. I love them. So
it's they're amazing, but they're beautiful. Everyone has to go look. LauraBird.com, right? That's where we're going to send them. They're fantastic.
Laura Bird, it's .com.au at the moment because I was in Australia.
Oh, got it. I have to tell you this one funny story, because for a while now I've been saying artists are the 3D printers, are going to be the 3D printers of the future. So I know how important it is, but that not knowing, there was someone else I interviewed who was like, yeah, oh, I know who it was. It was Shannon. And she was saying, I didn't know. She was like, I just made it and people bought it, which is great. But talk about not knowing. When I was a kid, I played basketball. I just started, and I was in a foul shooting contest, and you had to take 30 shots. I made it to the Western Mass Finals or something. You took 10 shots, you sat down, and the next person went, and that was like 10 of us. So I'm in sixth grade, and I've only been playing basketball 6 months or something. And my first 10 shots, I get 9 out of 10. And I sit down. And the second one, I get 8. And I think the second one, I got 9. It was somehow where I only missed like 3 or 4. And I remember how my father was like, oh my God. And he was so happy. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. You told me to put the ball in the hoop. So I put the ball in the hoop. Like, I had no idea how hard that was, and it never happened again. But that innocent mind going, all right, I'll just put it in the hoop, and it worked. So that I don't know how you get that. We get so programmed as we get older, but you're like, I never thought they wouldn't sell. I love that. Every artist should say 100%. That every day. Oh my God.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I don't know who I was listening to. It might have even been your podcast, but I remember hearing an artist somewhere saying, I gave up my artwork because it wasn't selling. And I thought, and then she sort of went to go on and say, because people don't tend to buy artwork these days. And I just thought, well, that's not been my experience of it, but it is a massive belief. And I reckon, like even with your basketball, if you couldn't do it again afterwards, as soon as your father says to you, that should have been really difficult. I can't believe you did that. Suddenly the psyche goes, oh, it's hard. And then suddenly you try and do it again and you can't do it. it's amazing how the body just follows the belief system.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And that's what, I also feel like right now it's easier to reprogram that. At this moment, something's working with us to reprogram that. Okay. So that's wonderful. So you're selling art just like that. And when you channeled, what brought you to painting vaginas, which by the way, your paintings are so beautiful. So everyone needs to go look, because if you just got a picture in your head, you don't know what these look like. They're fantastic. I know Americans are Americans are so like crass and vaginas, what? But you gotta see, it is something you would hang in your living room without a problem. It's beautiful.
100%. I get pictures of people all the time. They send me pictures of their little paintings that they've got. Some people have bought huge ones and they just have them above their fireplace. And I'm like, it looks fantastic. And I love doing them. But I started doing them actually probably a year ago, maybe 6 months. I actually don't know. I actually started by doing some healing work on my own feminine energy and how I viewed sexual energy and things like that, because I was clearing out, you know how we talk about clearing out the body? I was clearing out my vagina. I was clearing out because all my clients come to me with wounding in that area. And I wanted to make sure there was nothing that I had. And luckily there's nothing. We're all good. But I wanted to clear out the energy of, anytime I'd had sex with someone where I didn't want to, anytime I'd had sex with someone, I didn't like it. And I didn't say anything like that was because we store it in there. I'm telling you now, we store everything in there. That's our cauldron in between our legs. So I was cleansing that out, and I decided to paint my own. And I don't do anything small. I'm an Aries, so I don't just, paint a tiny picture. I went out and bought a huge canvas, and I sat there in my room with a mirror in between my legs, and I painted my own vagina, and I loved it. And my friend came over a week later and she was like, oh my God, what the fuck? That is incredible. Did you do that? And I was like, yeah, I just did it. It took me like 10 minutes when I did my own one. It was really quick and easy. And she was like, you need to paint smaller ones and you need to sell them. And so I thought that's a really good idea. So I went and bought 10 small canvases, A4 size, and I painted 10 and I sold them within 2 days. They were all gone, sold out. And I was like, we're onto something here, because they're healing. They bring, like, if you have a painting of a bright purple or blue, sparkly, glittery rainbow vagina in your bedroom, and you look at that, you're going to start to believe that you're magic. And that's the point of these. They look magical. They're covered in glitter. So it kind of makes a woman start to respect herself a bit more, love herself a bit more, because the reason I'm on this planet is to bring the consciousness of the women up. And so that's a way of doing it, to kind of give them that image of I'm magic.
And I love that you said it was like 10 minutes, because just creation is what it is. All right. You can spend hours on a painting, or you can spend 10 minutes, and it's equally energetically. What's interesting about that too is, also in the sense men heal here too. I know it's a female thing, but men have a lot of shame and a lot of, they have their own issues there between their legs, which is, I know they disassociate some, but that's a whole nother story. Do you think I should take a picture and send it to the Paint by Numbers and see what they say?
Totally. You should totally do that. I think just wait, see what the response is.
They might send me a couple. Oh, here you go. That's fantastic. Okay. So also this integration, I think I'm so thrilled, because I think you honestly encapsulated everything I was trying to say and feel about art and how important it is. So hold on one second, folks. We're going to come back. This is fabulous. Okay. Hey, I'm here with my friend Ari, that hosts, or I want to say takes care of all my Zoom events, my comedy shows, my classes. Ari, tell everybody what type of Zoom events you are great at hosting.
Yeah, so I really take care of any kind of Zoom event, from a virtual camp to lecture series, cooking classes, celebrations like weddings or bar and bat mitzvahs, really anything.
And to me, it just looks like you make my life easier. I just have to click on and talk, which is beautiful. Tell everybody, what are you doing behind the scenes that helps me so much?
Yeah, so I'm taking care of all of the settings like muting and spotlighting people, making breakout rooms, recording the meeting, really just all of the tech pieces you might think of or not think of. I'm taking care of that.
That is so helpful. And it really is the difference between something looking amateurish and something looking really professional and wanting people to come back to your meeting again. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so you're welcome to email me at wharton.ari@gmail.com. That's WHARTON.ARI@gmail.com. And you're welcome to email me with any questions and find out how we can work together.
And your rates are so reasonable, it's crazy. So everybody, wharton.ari@gmail. I'm going to try and have it in the show notes. If you can't find her or you don't know how to rewind the podcast, just email. I'll get you connected. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so I was going through your website last night. Love the art. You have everything. You do spell work. You do tarot readings. What does your day look like? Is it like you have your readings and this and that, and then you you do so much? Tell me where it begins.
Yeah, every day is very, very different. I tend to work with my one-to-one clients from like a Tuesday to a Thursday. So I tend to do my tarot readings throughout the day on those days, and then I teach my school on a Monday, and then I paint in between all of this stuff. So I've kind of got a bit of a system going in my brain, maybe not to anyone else, but in my brain it works. So because I like to work with a person and kind of go, okay, you need this. Like if a client comes to me and says, this is my issue, I can either think, I'd love to do a painting for you, or let's do a reading, or let's do a spell. And I like to just go with what that person is needing at that time. So I offer so many different things, and it tends to be the spells. They tend to be more in the evening. I only do spell work when the moon is out and when it's dark. I don't do any spell work with the sun up. I don't know why. I just never felt intuitively guided to do that. I like to be in darkness. I love the darkness. I'm not really a love and light kind of a person. I'm more about light and dark, and I thrive in darkness. That's my witchcraft coming out. So I like to be in a pitch black room with my candles and my herbs and my oils and do it like that. So with all my candles, I will, depending on what that person needs, I will choose the herbs to put on the candle. I'll anoint the candle with base oils and essential oils, and I'll carve into the candle what it is that they want, and I'll let it burn, and I will watch that candle. I will sit for 90 minutes with 5 candles around me, and I'll watch all of them, and I'll see how they burn, because that candle kind of becomes my client's body, and depending on what they're experiencing and how it burns is telling me what's happening. So for example, I had a client 2 weeks ago who's had a blocked ear for the longest time. And when I burnt her candle, the left-hand side of that candle melted and the right side didn't move until right at the end. It was really strange. I've never seen a candle do that before. And when it was done, I messaged her and she was like, I can hear out my left ear, Laura. I can hear. And I haven't heard out my left ear since I can remember. And the reason I love doing this work is because it still shocks me. I'm still like, oh my God, wow, that worked. And I have, all these amazing experiences with women and helping them in this way. It's just, I love doing the candle work. It's really an honor to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do tarot readings as well, which I love doing. But again, I'm not a fluffy tarot reader. I'm not like, oh, everything's going to be okay. I'm a real shoot. I'm like, I'm going to give it to you straight. So hold on tight. And I have to adapt sometimes to be like, this person needs to hear it in this way and not this way.
Yeah, that's a great way to say
they're going to defend.
That is a great way to say that, because some people go in like a bulldozer, and that is not fair to the client sometimes.
Yes, you can totally tell if that person's ready. Like I can feel that I have to say it. And usually the people that come to me are at the point where they need to hear it, because I'm that type of reader. But I definitely feel like, okay, I'm going to have to be really gentle with this one, just to give it to them straight, but in a very kind way, and then reassure them. And you know what I mean? So everything is adapted to what that person is ready to hear. Because if I give it the message in the wrong way, they're not going to hear me. They'll defend themselves, and then it doesn't work. So there's a lot of adaptation in my work.
Yes, because you also, I totally agree with that, because you don't want to be the parent that yelled at them as a child, and then that's how it's coming across. You have to intuitively work with them. It's so funny because I think everybody now that listens understands that, we're not, love and light is great as a portion, but when I started doing this communication with the archangels, they showed me a very specific meditation, and I had always seen myself underground. I don't know why, not scary, underground, a hole where light was showing on me. Couldn't see around me other than that light, but it wasn't like something was going to get me or something. It was so peaceful. They moved me up to the next level, which was water. And then they moved me up to the next level that was sun. And they had me sit in each level, and then they moved me back into the water. And they said, you are in your subconscious, now program it, which I believe, because in Rider deck, water is the subconscious. So I got to say all these great things to myself or something, but they said, you've done this paranormal dark side, not like you shouldn't have. They were like, okay, you got dark and now you go to light. And they showed that growth was like, if you had a ruler, and it was at one point, growth goes up and down the ruler. It goes exponentially dark and light. It doesn't go one way. It expands. And I think that's where we're all getting this message of the love and light isn't, that's out of balance.
Totally. Because, I have people, I'm sure you've seen it too, that just want to hear the positive and just want to live in the light, but you can't grow. Just like you can't grow if you're only in the dark. Because to me, everything starts in the dark, right? Babies are born in the dark. The womb is dark. So that's why I paint vaginas in the womb and all that stuff. It's like, that's the dark. That's where you go into the dark and you develop and you create, and then you come out to the light and you bring it to the light. Because if you only stay in the dark, you can't experience it fully, because it's like if it's not in the light, it hasn't really been born yet.
Right.
It's like there's a baby in the belly, but until you've pushed that thing out, it can't experience life. So, and you have to kind of honor that cycle of, okay, I'm in a dark time right now, and now I'm in a light time, and I'm going to love it because it's not going to last forever. And now I'm going to go in the dark, and I'm going to love that for a bit because this won't last forever either. And, you have to just you have to be okay with change and movement.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And that's the hardest one now, and I see this. I have a client who calls me and wants specific answers, and why she still keeps coming to me, I don't know, because it's almost like I have to do this. You're not in control. You don't pick this. Okay. And I think that's going to be, I think I finally learned not to do that. I finally learned to have a goal and then flow towards it as best I can and see what happens. But control issues right now, that's a little bit of like, I think what you were talking about, which is I always think the masculine side is the control issues. So if we're learning to reorganize that without control and integrate, that should be easier, right? Am I onto something?
Yeah. Because it's like the control in the way that you're talking about it is like that distorted male energy, like controlling and not letting anyone be free and kind of controlling another person. So that's distorted. But there is also a structure of healthy control. If a man's in control of his body, if he's in control of his sexuality and his sexual thoughts, if he's in control of his motivation and his work ethic, then he will succeed. So it's like you have to break away from the distorted version and put it and replace it with a good one. But that's difficult for people because they hear the word control and they kind of go, I don't want to have a control in my life, or I don't want to have controlling people around me. It's like, no, there is a healthy version of it, but you've probably experienced an unhealthy one. And there are people that, I would imagine, go for readings because they want you to tell them that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And in my perspective, everything is always going to be okay. Like, we're completely protected. Yeah. But people don't always see that or know that, or they don't see underneath it. Like when I have clients that come to me in a really awful spot, I'm like, how do you not see the magic in this? This is amazing. And I'll give them the magic and then they'll feel better. But I'm not going to take away the fact that like some of the readings that I have people come to me, I'm like, look, this is your fault. This actually isn't that person. This is you. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to hear that sometimes. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're the only one that can change this. You're in control.
That's where absolutely. And that's also where I know, like, everybody is saying, are you sure you're going to Nashville? And I was like, I'm 99.9% sure, but I won't be sure until the day I get in the car and go. And now the plan may have changed a little bit, but maybe I'm supposed to be there for a reason. It doesn't always, maybe I'm supposed to go back to Utica for 3 months, or maybe, the love of my life is there. And I'm glad you talked about that, about control, because we have to be a little controlling, but we have to know the difference about what we can and cannot control.
Yeah, I think it's good to be in control of yourself, but we can't control anyone else. And
right.
One of the biggest things that we see probably in readings, especially with women, want to control a man or want to control if he, I have people say, do you do spells to make someone like me? No, I absolutely do not do spells to make someone like you. If they don't like you, I'm not going to mess with their free will. That's bad karma on my behalf. That would be very bad witchcraft. I'm not going to do that. But, there is a healthy level of like, I'm going to control myself. And even if I feel like the world is out of control around me, I can be in control of my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts, so.
That's funny, because when someone says, can you make someone like me? And how controlling that statement is, I just think, I already know why they don't like you.
Yeah.
Exactly
right.
Now
exactly.
Yes, I can see right away what's going on here. I can see why he's staying with his wife. There's an interesting. This is something I think about 2022, but I love, because I keep throwing you curveballs that weren't even where we started, and you're just fielding them so great. Two things that I'm very concerned about in 2022. When I look at the world, more so when I look at my life, or I would say political. This is a little bit political, but not really. But freedom is on trial, number one, in the United States. I would say freedom is having some trouble here, but also cancel culture. I wasn't really paying attention, or I didn't, Twitter was never my thing, but there's this, you got to cancel someone because they said this, and there's no coming back if they said it. And I feel like, talk about controlling and not integrating, like whatever this split is that they're trying to do with us, cancel culture, which they think is the answer, is not. Do you think that's going to even out or go away, or any feelings on either one of those words, cancel culture or freedom?
I mean, I definitely have perspectives on freedom, but the cancel culture thing, you have to explain that one to me, because I hear people say this a lot. Cancel culture. I'm like, what is it? What is cancel culture? Explain that one to me.
So let me think of a good one. Dave Chappelle is the first one that comes to mind. So Dave Chappelle has always been described as anti-trans people, because he makes jokes, or I think actually, and people take this with a grain of salt, because I've only seen the last special. I don't know the prelude to this. So they said he's anti-trans, or he's transphobic. And so his last special, which actually was all about cancel culture, he talked about a trans woman that he hired and went on the road with her, and he had a story about her. So he did his story, and then I can't remember, but I'm sure there was some criticism. It was opinion. So everyone, I'm really flubbing this up, but at the end you'll go, she got it right. So there was sort of they said, well, there was a protest at Netflix from the people. They didn't want the special out, which kind of turned out to be a lie. And I think was a promo, because only 6 people showed up, but they made it in the news, like big protest for Dave Chappelle's special. It was like, how publicists do that to get you to go, well, what happened there? So the special goes out, and somehow they decide he's canceled. And he had the greatest line, which is, Twitter is not a place. So yesterday, Patton Oswalt, another comic, had been somewhere and posted a picture. Hey, here's me and Dave Chappelle somewhere. So all the hate came at Patton, like, I used to think you were funny, and now you're transphobic. And it all went to where Patton had to give an apology. So when they cancel someone, they're like trying to say Dave Chappelle should never work again. He will never work again, which they're not in control of. But it's like, if you make, and then Patton made, I guess, that one mistake of taking a picture with someone he's known for years. And then he had to apologize for it because Dave has been canceled. Does that make sense how I explained it?
That makes sense.
Or someone breaks up with their girlfriend and the girlfriend says he was a misogynist and they are fired from their show. They have to make a public apology. It's this zero tolerance is what it is.
Got it. Okay. Yes, I get it. Okay. So to me, this is, you know how we talked about the distorted masculine?
Mm-hmm.
This is the distorted feminine, because it's all about people's emotions and their triggers. And you've probably noticed that the world has to be so careful. It's like health and safety rules are so crazy these days. You can't do anything without, you got to sign this, you got to sign that, you got to do this, you got to do that. If you don't do it like this, you're not going to, you can't come if you don't sign this. And it's very strict. And to me, it feels like it's actually the distorted feminine energy that will have to be broken down. I think we're already seeing it being broken down, but it's to the point where it's like, okay, so let's say he did make a joke and someone who was trans did find offense to it because for whatever reason, that person has every right to be offended by it, but you can't control and make everyone else be offended by it, and you can't control what someone else says. So this is all about a person just learning to control their own triggers and be aware of their own emotional trauma. And that's female energy. So I've talked about this before, but I never put it to the word of cancel culture, but it feels like it's a very similar thing of the distorted feminine energy. Because I'll get I'll do a YouTube video. I've got 20,000 people on my YouTube, and I usually 99% get great comments, but sometimes I'll get the most disgusting, horrible comments. And I think, okay, so it triggered you, but why do you have to put that comment?
Mm-hmm.
Now do you want everyone in the comment box to not like me? Do you want me to lose subscribers? Like, control your emotions. If that triggers you, look at your own father or your mother or your relationship and don't put it on me because I have an opinion. We're all entitled to an opinion. Whether you agree with it or not is different, but you're entitled to it. So
go ahead.
That's what it feels like. No, that's what it feels like. Just that it will break itself down, because both masculine and feminine distortions have to be broken to be rebuilt. So
okay.
Everything has to get bigger.
I love that.
As it breaks.
Okay, I love that, because as a comedian, like my dry bar special, I think it's at like 18 million views or something, but you never click on the comments. You can't, because comedy is one of these things that everyone thinks they can do and thinks they know what's funny or what isn't. They don't understand it's subjective to everyone. So I had this special, and then somehow it came up in a Google alert, and I clicked on it, and there were all these ladies just, it was amazing. It was like the name of the clip was one-liners, and it was all one-liners. And someone wrote, this woman doesn't know what she's doing. These thoughts are not even connected. And some other woman wrote, that's why they're called one-liners, you idiot. And it just kept going. But at one point, one woman was so mean that I did comment, and I said, hey, I'm a person, right? And she pulled everything down. But that's also, it's dehumanizing. Someone's trying to dehumanize you when they do that. Not like, I like that joke better than the other. That's fine. I really don't care what you think. But it was like she was trying to destroy me for some reason. And, I had a yoga teacher that did this. It was really bizarre. I went to a yoga class, never been there before. This woman yelled at me every pose to the point where I almost walked out. And I was like, I had to figure I must look like something, or I don't know what it was. But anyways, now I'm being a victim. But I didn't mean that. But I get it. Do you know what? It was
I've
just
always
weird.
said, I've always said COVID woke up the witches. Now, when you wake up the witches, you also wake up the witch hunters. And that's an issue. I have a podcast on this, the witch hunters, because a lot of women will fall in love with a witch hunter. It's a very different lifetime. It's a wound from a different lifetime, but there are female and male witch hunters. And I always look at the women witch hunters because they're the women that would throw you under the bus without even thinking about it. So, if you look back at the witch trials, the female Holocaust, it's, a lot of these women were killed because other women were basically ratting them out and saying, well, she's a witch, she's a witch, she's a witch. She's prettier than me. She's a witch, kill her. She's taller than me. She's a witch, kill her. There's a lot of women against women. And so COVID woke up the witches because of the freedom they took away. It resonated in these women's bodies of like, I remember this time where I was told I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. So all these witches started waking up around COVID time, but just alongside them, the witch hunters came up too. And you're going to see that women throwing women under the bus. It's really disgusting behavior, but everything has to come up to die, basically. Everything has to come up to die. So
wow,
you might be experiencing some of that. It always gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. I think it's such a profound message.
It is. And, I have a really interesting, need your advice now. Or I want to hear your advice. I shouldn't say that. It was weird because someone was correcting me. Like, you want, I don't know, whatever. Here it is. I had to talk about that in therapy because yoga is one of my favorite things. And this woman, like, other people in the class were looking around going like, who is this that she's yelling at? And it was very bizarre. And when I left, she said goodbye, and I could see on her face that she knew. At one point, I finally spoke out. She said, can you do that with your shoulder, Karen? And I said, no. And she said, I wasn't saying anything. And she said, what's wrong with your shoulder? Did you have surgery? And I go, no, it's just not behaving. And then she goes, oh, you shouldn't talk that way about your body. So I went, all right, I'll lie. Everything is great over here. Got a big laugh, which she didn't like. And I should have done from the beginning because it shut her down. But when I left, she came over and I said, well, I'll see you in a couple weeks. And then I hated myself for saying that. I didn't need to be disruptive, but I was, and my therapist talked about this great, I was trying to take care of her discomfort. And she should have been sitting in her discomfort because that was her karma for what she had done. So when someone is a witch hunter, how do we deal with them in protecting ourselves, but not keeping this tug of war going?
It's a tricky one because, I mean, if ever I meet someone like that, I'm very specific with who I let in my life. There is no one in my life that would ever cause me harm. So if I meet one, I don't tend to, engage so much. But if there's no emotional attachment to that person, if there's no karma, it's not usually an issue. The issue is usually when, like you say, there's some kind of karmic attachment. And with someone like you, and this is just my perspective of you come across as very confident, very happy, very loving and very fun. And some women find that threatening because they are not that.
Yeah.
And so you'll find that they'll dig and they'll pick. And it's absolutely not your job to make them feel better for their dissatisfaction in life. I mean, it's not, but you have that loving energy where you probably would, feel guilty for,
Yeah, I should have just
feeling uncomfortable, right?
I should have just maybe said thank you and walked out, or I didn't want to be the person that I need to straighten you out. But it's such a fine line because I hated myself for saying something when something that was inauthentic.
Yes, but then you're also blaming yourself for a situation that maybe you shouldn't be taking too much responsibility for.
Okay.
Because we tend to do that, and that's you trying to take control of the situation, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think, well, she came right up to me and I was kind of like, this is the other thing. People are I remember because she came up to me with not just a mask, but she had the plastic shield on. And I remember thinking, okay, she's terrified. She's terrified of something. Also, she was trying extremely hard to be funny, and she didn't know I was a comic, but I think somehow telepathically she was like, I'll show you who's the comic. Like it was very strange. But this is an interesting topic. Talk about the female trying to make everything better. Because I had a client, and oh my God, we're so over time. You're fascinating and brilliant, Laura. This has been amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Sometimes you don't. Maybe I'm wrong on this. You're the witch. You correct me. Sometimes you don't send people away with love and light energy. sometimes you just have to cut them off and put a mirror behind and show them who they are? Or am I being too vindictive?
Yep. No, I mean, if you are, then I am, because if I have someone that comes across to me like that, which is not very often, if I'm honest, but I have had it, I will have absolutely nothing to do with that person. And I'm not going to try and make the situation better. I'm not going to try and find a way for you to feel better. I'm not going to try and find a way for myself to feel better. If my body reacts, if I'm in the room with someone that I feel that, I will say to myself, I hear you. I don't like this person. We won't come here again. And I don't really tend to engage. But there is this thing of like toxic empathy and toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
People, oh, you shouldn't speak to your arm like that. My arm is okay, knowing that it's not okay. I don't need to pretend that my arm is fine. I'm not going to lie to myself, right? Because you're integrated, whereas a lot of yoga teachers, actually, a lot of them are quite they can be quite fluffy and everything's okay when it's not. And that creates problems for a whole other podcast that we could probably talk about. But
there
is this thing of like, yeah, totally. But there is a toxic empathy where we sort of take on everyone else's problems and you're beating yourself up for being nice at the end. I don't think there's anything wrong with you being nice at the end at all. I just don't, maybe you just don't know how to handle these types of women. And
yeah, I felt like I was not authentic, but not honoring myself. I was like, if somebody was really mean to me and my mom said, okay, let's just go. You were great. And I would be like, why didn't you stand up for me? I didn't honor or stand up for myself, but now I've learned. So there, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And you actually did kind of stand up for yourself in the class when you said, my shoulder isn't behaving and I can't do that. That's you standing up for yourself. So you actually did stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe you probably I would imagine you felt guilty for her discomfort of your comment. And so afterwards you're like, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. That just shows that you're a nice person. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing.
Awesome. Well, listen, Laura, you're brilliant. This was fantastic. Tell everyone where they can find you, and it will be in the show notes, laurabird.com.au.
Yes. And my Instagram is Laura Bird Official. I'm on my Instagram a lot. And my YouTube is Laura Bird as well. So I've got loads of videos on YouTube people can check out, or they can go to the website and book in or whatever they want to do, or they can message me on Instagram. I'm pretty good at getting back to people.
I'm going to listen to your, I love the Witch Hunter. That's my an alarm went off in my head. Now I know, I almost want to say what to look for.
Yeah. I have a Spotify. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see, if you go to my bio, you'll see a link tree, and it's got everything there, and it's got my Spotify podcasts. And there's one on there called, Did You Fall in Love with a Witch Hunter? And it's pretty amazing. I got some really good feedback from there. We're doing a spell to counteract some of that stuff. If anyone wants to come along to that too, that's going to be fun.
Oh, I'm so excited. All right, everybody. Laura, thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got this to work. My apologies for all the mess ups. It's just been like that over here. But all right. Thank you so much. Folks, check out Laura's website. I'm going right to that Spotify. Also, join my Patreon. I'm really having fun teaching tarot and psychic development, and hopefully, Laura, you're going to come on as a guest on that and talk about your process, because that's what I have, one guest a month, and they always talk about their process. So watch for that, everybody. Thanks to Mike at Una Rising Media. Y'all, I'll see you next week.